Over the past few weeks, we have been voting for what our favourite Mass Effect 3 multiplayer character was. Now that the votes have been counted, I can reveal the top 10 multiplayer characters as voted by us as a community as we count down to Mass Effect Andromeda's release. So let's take a look at the character who made the number 9 slot, the Krogan Warlord Sentinel. The hulking beast that is the Krogan Warlord was added with the Reckoning DLC pack for the multiplayer. This DLC pack added a lot of unique characters to the game, but for me personally, the Krogan Warlord stood out among them. It was an antithesis of what a Krogan should be in my eyes. He was tough, he was good at melee, and he was a hard hitter. On top of that, he's a Krogan wielding a huge hammer, making him desirable for a lot of players out there. Of course, being a Sentinel, he came with the standard stuff you would find on all Sentinels, that being tech armor. This tech-based armor, once activated, allowed a Sentinel to take more damage, as well as boosting their existing powers, melee damage, or weaponry. In the Krogan Warlord's case, it was mainly used to boost his already high melee damage. Of course, tech armor could be activated, but for the Krogan Warlord, I never really felt the need to activate the detonation effect of this ability. Looking back at it, I don't think I actually used the detonation of tech armor on any of the Sentinels, as most of their other abilities or weaponry were sufficient damage enough, and sacrificing that damage reduction that tech armor provides a player was not worth it in the end. The highlight for the Krogan Warlord was his hammer. Whilst this gave him some nice melee options, either by providing you with a huge swing if you hold the melee button, or a free hit combo if you tap the melee button, it could also be enhanced thanks to the two other abilities that the Krogan Warlord came with. The first is Biotic Hammer. This charged the Krogan Warlord's hammer with biotic energy, allowing him to deal more damage with his hammer, as well as providing damage bonuses against foes who had barriers, or if you spec'd deep into the Biotic Hammer tree, you could use it to do increased damage to armoured targets as well. On top of that, the Biotic Hammer was also a handy activation tool for combos. It could be used to either activate tech combos or biotic combos, so this could work well in synergy with other power-based characters. The only downside to the Biotic Hammer was that it only by default got one charge, so when the Krogan charges the hammer, it was only for one swing. So it would be used either when you hold down the melee button for that heavy hit, or at the end of your free hit combo. You could amend this slightly in the Biotic Hammer tree, but personally I preferred Power Hammer over a number of charges. The second way the Krogan Warlord could charge his hammer was with the ability Electric Hammer. This was his tech-based way of charging the hammer. Again, this added more damage to the hammer's swing, but it also had the chance of stunning opponents. It also came with 2 charges by default, making it maybe the superior option when it came to weaker foes, whilst the Biotic one was normally better for tougher foes. However, the Electric Hammer came with a bonus. Deep into the Electric Hammer tree was the option to either add fire damage or chill damage to the Electric Hammer. Fire damage added a nice dot to the target, while the chill damage made your enemy's movement speed slower and increased all damage against that target. Taking either of these also gave the Krogan Warlord the option to set up 4 tech combos, either the Fire Explosion or Cryo Explosion. This could work really well if you're working with other tech-based characters. Failing that, the Krogan Warlord could activate his own tech combos by using the Biotic Hammer after hitting them with your Electric Hammer. However, this could be a little bit finicky unless you had a light loadout. As for the Krogan Warlord's passives, you had the standard stuff to increase his weaponry or his power damage. But something that was unique to him, and in some respects as well as all Krogans, was his Warlord Rage. This allowed the Krogan Warlord, after a few kills, to go into a Rage mode. This Rage mode provided him with damage reduction, a melee damage bonus, and a health regeneration passive. However, to get this awesome bonus, you had to melee kill enemies, and it wouldn't last indefinitely. But with the Krogan Warlord, all of his abilities seemed to revolve around his melee attacks, which made keeping the Warlord Rage active relatively simple. The only time it came into a bit of an issue was when you were taking on the harder, tougher opponents in the game. As the Warlord relies on melee, his weaponry was not too much of an issue at all. Normally taking a shotgun was optimal to help with the fact that you will be in close proximity to your opponents, but it wasn't disastrous if you had a poor weapon, as most of the damage came from his hammer attacks. With his Rage mode active, he could take a lot of punishment, not only thanks to the health regeneration and damage reduction of that passive, but the fact that the Krogan Warlord has increased health and shields, more so than almost any other class in the game. There are only a few who are on par with him or even above him. However, despite this, he was susceptible to one thing that the enemy could dish out, and that was insta-kills. Certain enemies, banshees, praetorians and such, could still insta-kill the Krogan warlord despite his huge shield and health pool. This made certain factions more risky for the Krogan warlord to fight against. And in some respects, you have to wonder how a banshee could insta-kill this hulking beast. But there were tips and tricks you could use to help the Krogan warlord still fight in melee range against these insta-kill foes. For example, fighting on stairs or ramps prevented insta-kills against you, so you could use this to your advantage when you're playing the Krogan warlord. It also didn't help thanks to the fact that the warlord, as well as all Krogans, have decreased mobility, the Krogan warlord even more so. He couldn't duck behind cover and he couldn't roll or dodge. He could run, but even so, this made his mobility one of his downsides, unfortunately. Despite all this though, he was a unique character. There was no other character like him, and in a way it would have been awesome to see a character like this in the single player. There is really nothing more satisfying than smashing people over the head with this guy's huge hammer, and thus I can see why he's earned his place on this top 10 list. Now remember, this top 10 list has been put together as a popularity contest, so to speak, of the top 10 multiplayer characters as voted by you. These may not necessarily be the best classes for the harder difficulties, but these are our favourites. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Don't forget to check back for the number 8 slot, and until next time, I've been Darcblade, bringing you another video in our top 10 of the Mass Effect 3 multiplayer characters. Hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.